So, at almost every stage of the encounters between Joseph and his brothers in Egypt, Joseph weeps. He turns out to be a big crier. And there are actually 7 scenes in which there are tears from Joseph. First, when the brothers come before Joseph for the first time, they say, and I quote, "Surely we're being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we wouldn't listen, and that's why this has come upon us." They didn't realize Joseph could understand them. He turned away from them and began to weep. And it happens again when they bring Benjamin with them. Joseph sees his younger brother and rushes out of the room in order to weep. It happens a third time after Judah's great speech when Joseph discloses his identity. And once again, I quote, "Then Joseph could no longer control himself, and he cried out, 'Have everyone leave my presence.' So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, but he wept so loudly the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household knew." It happens a fourth time immediately after Joseph discloses his identity. It says, "He threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him weeping. He kissed all his brothers and wept over them." It happens once again when Joseph meets Jacob for the first time after their long separation. It happens a 6th time upon the death of Jacob, and it happens a 7th time sometime after Jacob's death. And again, I want to quote, "When Joseph's brother saw their father was dead, they said, 'What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and avenges all the wrongs that we did to him?' So they sent word to Joseph saying, 'Your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now, please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father.' When their message came to him, Joseph wept." There isn't anyone in the Bible who weeps as much as Joseph does. Joseph's tears span a whole range of emotion, from painful memories to the joy of reunion. And then there are the tears at Jacob's deathbed. But the most intriguing tears are the tears he sheds when he hears about his brother's fear that he'll take vengeance on them now that their father is no longer alive. It seems to me that this last act of weeping is the price Joseph pays for his elevation to a position of power. Joseph does everything possible for his brothers. He saves them from famine, he gives them a place of honor in Egyptian society, and he clearly states that he harbors no grudge against them for what they did to him all those years before. What more can Joseph do? And yet, all these years later, his brothers still don't trust him. At that moment, Joseph discovers the limits of raw power. He discovers the extent to which the human connection, the personal connection, the family connection, holds far more value than political power, both for himself and for those around him. Joseph weeps over the limits of power and also over the terrible price he's had to pay for it. His dreams have been realized, but the tragedy of his abandonment as a child remains a tragedy. Moreover, the wounds within the family clearly haven't yet healed. On the surface, Joseph is all-powerful. His family is completely dependent on him. But on a deeper level, it's the other way around. Joseph still yearns for his family's acceptance, their love, and their recognition. I think this is something to which we can all relate. It's actually similar to what the 19th century German philosopher Hegel wrote about the master-slave relationship. On the face of it, masters rule and slaves obey. But the real truth is, the master depends on his slaves. He has leisure only because they work, and he's master only because his slaves recognize him as such. Meanwhile, slaves acquire their own dignity through the work they do. They develop a kind of inner freedom, while the master has to suffer the guilt of oppressing and a kind of inner bondage. This tension can only be resolved when there are neither masters nor slaves, when they're only human beings who treat each other as equals. So maybe we can understand Joseph's tears foreshadowing the master and slave drama that's about to take place between Pharaoh and the Israelites. Torah, Tanakh, Judaism as a whole are actually a sustained critique of power. It's true that we can't do without it, and Jewish powerlessness down through the ages is proof of that. But raw power is actually a two-edged sword. Power alienates. It breeds distrust. It diminishes those against whom it gets used, as well as those who use it. Joseph weeps when he sees the extent to which power separates him from the rest of his family. But Judaism is all about a different approach, one which depends not upon power, but upon love, loyalty, and mutual respect. Power may be a necessary evil. Nevertheless, it is an evil. And in general, the less we need to resort to it, the better off we'll be. So here is wishing everyone a very happy, healthy 2018. We will see you next in the new year, and I wish you in the meantime a Shabbat Shalom.